Afternoon everybody, Rich here, back for another video for the Diecast F1 review. Here today is the Jordan EJ11 from the 2001 Formula 1 World Championship, powered by Honda, and in the car is Jarno Trulli. And the Jordan team went into 2001 with a lot of high hopes after what was a disaster in 2000 with their EJ10 car. The outdated Mugen Honda engines were very unreliable, and the car was difficult to set up and difficult to drive. Although being fast, it was nowhere near as competitive as their 99 car. 17 points scored in 2000 compared to their 61 in 99, so 2001 looked to be a step in the right direction. The car, the EJ11, being fast in pre-season testing, regularly being at the top or near the top of the timesheets, but it's clear to see that when the car got to racing, it was just a mediocre machine. Fast at qualifying, but quickly fell off the pace during the race. It's what now becomes the legendary Trulli train, as Jarno Trulli would hold up most of the field throughout the race before falling off or falling out of the race. Frenton in the other car had a relatively mediocre season, scoring a handful of points before being sacked halfway through the season and replaced by Riccardo Zonta for one race, and then finally John Lacey for the rest of the season. Frenton finally moving to the Prost team for their swan-song season. For fifth place in the Constructors' Championship that year, I think with 19 points, but nothing really special. Fifth place for the Jordan team was pretty mediocre by this time. They had finished fifth 4 times previously, and I think they were pretty sick of it. But it was a relatively resurgent season compared to their 2000 season, but not many more points scored. No podium finishes scored, no wins, and just a best result of 4th place. I think a couple of 4th places. Jarno Trulli picking up the last 4th place, I think, at the US Grand Prix, beating off the BAR team. The BAR team also using the Honda engines, but I think both teams were closely fought, but Jordan won by about a handful of points, probably about 3 points. The design of the car was relatively simple as well. As I mentioned before, the high nose, fat side pods, but a fancy front wing, used by only a couple of teams that season. The car looked good, bright yellow livery, with a shark on the nose of the car compared to the Hornet for the past 3 seasons, and the car did look the business. It's just a shame that the team never performed beyond 5th place. It was kind of back to their 1997 form. But little did we know at the time that this would be the last really competitive Jordan, as from 2002 onwards the team was slipped further down the field, 6th in 2002, 9th in 2003 and 2004, and 9th again in 2005 before the team was finally swallowed up into the Midland group and eventually becoming what is now the Force India team. Let's just hope they can move a bit further forward, as they are quite a force to be reckoned with. Force India, there you go. The team were also dealt a blow throughout 2001, as Eddie Jordan claimed to have signed an agreement with Vodafone to sponsor his team. Eddie Jordan took the company to court after Vodafone refused or denied any negotiation to be done. The team went to court and ultimately lost, Eddie Jordan having to fork out an awful lot of money, and in doing so cost the team a lot of development. This is where the beginning of the end came for Jordan. But enough about the team and the ongoings and outgoings of the season. Onto the model itself. This is a Mattel model, and we just zoom in a bit here. And it's one of the better Mattel models, I have to say. It's fairly simple. There's not a huge lot of bits going for it. There's plenty of well, it's basically this is the only aerodynamic device on the car. Basically a big wedge of plastic there. So a quick look around the car. So we go from the nose onwards. So we go zoom into the nose. The big shark on the nose. Sorry about the light. The natural light outside isn't very good, so I'm having to use a light behind me. But to look over the top of the chassis, over through the driver, along the side pods, and there's plenty of detail here. 1/18 scale as well, of course, just to prove the point there. All my cars are 1/18, but look along there like so. We'll zoom out again. Now we zoom. I turn the nose to the camera. You can see the profile of the front wing pillars, and the nose sections. If I just tip the camera up so you can see the front wing there. Very wide front wing supports, a very flat nose. But if you painted all the cars white in 2001, the Jordan would stand out because it was one of the only cars to have this sort of design of nose. The front wing was shared by, the design was copied by Benetton and Sauber throughout the year, and it just looked good. I think it was something to do with the raising of the chassis, the rules making the chassis higher, so the front wings were changed in design. So I look around the back of the chassis as well, or around the back of the car. Fairly normal design there around the back. Side exhaust sticking out the top of the side pods. Quick look through the rear wing, through the diffuser. It's definitely one of the better Mattel models as well, with the paintwork being quite good as well. Now look over the top of the car. Look down on the black paintwork. And then into the cockpit there. So the steering wheel on the Jordan that year was quite an iconic looking design. Lots of bright yellow buttons on that steering wheel there. And a very nice car it was too. Turn around. And any way you look at this car, it is a good looking machine. Despite the colour, not a lot of people do agree with the colour, but it does stand out, this car. Very nice looking. You've got the shark on the nose. I know when they launched the car, the shark on the nose was a bit smaller, the mouth wasn't quite as open, but they made it bigger just to make it look a bit more intimidating. So you've got the shark on the nose there. So underneath the nose it's all black. You've got the barge boards on the underside of the suspension there. And then you've got the plank. Got the diffuser there. Nicely detailed too. So like I said, it's a Mattel model. The Hot Wheels logo you just briefly saw there. So there it is there, the Hot Wheels logo. You've got the EJ11 there, 118. Yeah, definitely a shame with this team being on their swan song basically. Never being really competitive again. The Honda engine being not as bulletproof as many people would thought it would be. It's sort of the same as today really, with McLaren using the engines. They're pretty shit really, aren't they? But never mind about that. So like I said, Mattel model, one of their better models. The build quality of this model is pretty solid. I mean, there's no pieces that are just going to snap off by looking at them. The front wing, although a bit flexy, it's pretty rock solid on there. Suspension's pretty good as well. Pardon me. The wing mirrors are pretty solid as well. You got a few wibbly aerials. You got two, one either side of the cockpit. They're pretty sharp actually. They're not flexy at all. So you see that one that doesn't flex at all. You got one on the other side by the driver's head, and you got one in front of the wing mirror just here. Another one which doesn't flex at all. You got this small wing piece here. This doesn't flex either. This is pretty solid as well. That's plastic. This, because you can see where the join lines around the edge of it, where it joins on. It's plastic, but it is pretty solid, so that's not going to fall off either. The rear wing also pretty solid. That's probably the only flexy part, but it's still not overly flexy. It's pretty rock on there. So it's a pretty solid car. And also the T-cam on the top, another solid piece. This is a pretty rock solid car, and you can't really go wrong for the price as well. It's the price of this car varies, but you can usually pick it up pretty cheap. But you do have to be careful, because sometimes they do issue the show car. Sorry, I've just fallen over here. Yeah, sometimes when you see this car, it is actually the show car. It is the 2000 car painted in this livery. And the ways you can tell that, if you ever see the show car or this car on eBay, the one to look out for, if you look at this car, the side pods are curved at the front, whereas the show car will have square side pods. So they just have straight, as you go straight there and then straight up that way. That's the way to tell. And also with the show car, it doesn't have the fancy front wing either. So the front wing supports to be straight down, and the front wing will be flat. So that's another way of telling what is the show car. So that's one to avoid. Although a very nice car it is as well, the show car. I owned it before, and I sold it after I got this one. It's a nice car to have, but of course show cars don't really race, they don't exist. So kind of defeats the object. Basically they're just for show, which is why they're called show cars. But this car, you can pick it up pretty easily. They do come about quite often. They're not overly expensive, although you do have to put up a fight sometimes with these cars. So I'm not sure what the price would be. Sort of around £30–40 is a relatively good buy for this car. So I've done all the looking around of it. The build quality is, like I said, pretty rock solid. The tyres are typical of Mattel. They're not overly detailed. They're just sort of brand new, fresh, grooved tyres there. There's no texture to them. There's no real detailing to them, but they're pretty good otherwise. Also, you've got the OZ on the inside there. So you got the quite detailed in there. So you got the wheel nut actually moulded onto this one. I reviewed the Williams FW36 the other day, and it had no detail at all on the wheel hub. So after a few years, Mattel sort of gave up with their detailing. But overall, this one is a better car, and compared to some of the other cars, I've got the 2001 McLaren in the cabinet by the side of me, and it is pretty dire compared to this thing. So Mattel really didn't have a consistency with their products. Some of their cars were top notch, and some of the cars were pretty dire, which is strange coming from the same year. But never mind. But anyway, a quick look around the car again. So from the back end, we zoom up. Let me roll backwards and look down from the nose all the way back. And over the rear wing. So there we go. That's the EJ11, and that's all I have to say about the car. Definitely one to pick up, and I would recommend picking this one up, definitely. And there is a box for it as well. I have got the box, but it's behind me, and I can't be bothered to really look at it. It's a bog standard model box from 2001. So if you've got any other Mattel models from that year, they're all pretty much the same, just with the Jordan logo on them. But anyway, this is Rich signing off, logging off, and disappearing, and I shall return with another review. So bye for now.